As we continue our discussion of determinations, we're going to talk about persistence, in particular, persisting even when it hurts. And St. Paul, he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and this is a little bit of a paraphrase, but he challenges his readers by saying, why should I let my liberty or my freedom be limited or determined by someone else's conscience? And this is something that's really important for us, especially when we are in the midst of a process where we are seeking change, systemic change, when we are working very hard towards the blessing and the benefit of the church or the organization that we love. And when we as God's people are on this journey, even if we've begun with prayer, as we should, beginning on our knees, because if we don't begin on our knees, God's going to bring us to our knees. And then we seek the Lord's vision, the Lord's plan. And then we create a mission plan, and we focus in on where God is calling us to serve and how He is calling us to serve and who He is calling us to be in our community as we are seeking out that biblical blue sky vision for our future. When we as God's people set out on that path together, I can tell you it's going to be hard work. Right off the bat, it's going to be hard. It doesn't matter what church you're in. It doesn't matter what congregation. It doesn't matter what your political affluence or influence is or persuasion is. None of that stuff matters because human beings are first and foremost human beings. And reality is we don't like to change. I know many people know the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief. You can also apply a very similar mentality to change. And there's a Kubler-Ross change curve, and there is a resistance phase. And I got to tell you, especially as we are working through a full year of genuinely seeking the Lord's will and trying to put it into practice, that's going to mean change. And what that means is that people are going to resist it. Some are going to resist it just because they can't handle change at all. Others are going to resist because they don't like what's going on and it threatens them somehow. But during this resistance phase, when we are guided by God's call and God's will, and we are seeking Him humbly and honestly, we are going to have to just accept the fact that there is going to be resistance, that it isn't going to be easy, that it may actually be really, really hard, that there may be people that all of a sudden no longer want to be a part of our thing. And we don't want anyone to leave on bad terms, but the reality is some people just aren't going to be able to handle it, and they're going to find themselves in a different place. And so for us as God's people to recognize that when we are experiencing this resistance, it is but a part of a process that leads towards acceptance. And it isn't going to be easy and it isn't going to be quick. There are always temptations to create shortcuts and to do things quickly. But I can tell you, things that are done quickly can be undone quickly. Think about the way that our government works. The quickest way for an executive to get something done is simply by signing an executive order, as long as it's within the rule of law. But even that can be very quickly challenged in the courts, and it can be stayed, it can be stopped, it can be upheld. And then, even if that executive order stands, as soon as you have another executive, all they got to do is sign a paper, and it is undone. Things that are done quickly can be undone quickly. The things that are done well, that take a long time, those are going to take a long time to undo, but it's going to mean time on the front end. It's going to mean us persisting and pushing even through discomfort as God's people, seeking a better future for the collective, for the whole. And so as we think about being determined and determination and persisting even when it hurts, let us acknowledge and embrace the reality that these things do not happen overnight, and they are not easy. I say oftentimes in working with congregations and organizations that things in the church move at the speed of church. It's designed to not change, okay? And when we're doing these things, I never want us to sacrifice who we are, our theology, our practice, our worship. Those things that we identify very early in the process are essential to who we are and keeping us true to who we are. Those things do not change. Everything else, though, is negotiable. Everything else actually over the course of time is going to have to change. Maybe a crazy thought, but I don't believe that Jesus and the disciples were pulling a pipe organ with them everywhere they traveled around the Sea of Galilee. I just don't think that was a part of their plan. And yet we struggle. We can't let go of some things, and we sometimes want to let go of the things that are essential to who we are. And so let us persist in faith, following the Lord's lead, following the Lord's will, seeking to do His will in our community, knowing that when we do, even though it is hard, Even though we are going to go through a period of resistance, that there is going to be periods of acceptance, and what we have on the other end is going to be worth all of the work. And so keep it up, keep working, keep trying, keep persisting in faith, even when it hurts.